Welcome to another episode of Behind the Business presented by Gore Mutual. I'm your host, Ian McLean, President and CEO of the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce. This podcast is recorded on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. Each week I sit down for candid conversations where we go beyond the boardroom and behind the business to uncover the real stories of Waterloo Region's business community. Today on Behind the Business, we're joined by Andrew Leith, founder of Octant Executive Advisory Group. Andrew has spent his career helping organizations navigate complexity, grow high-performing teams, and unlock hidden potential, all through his unique navigation philosophy. His journey didn't start in a boardroom. It started in a marina in southern Ontario, where growing up on the water taught him lessons about unpredictability, resilience, and direction. Those lessons became the foundation for Octant, a firm that empowers executives and teams across industries to embrace curiosity, accountability, and innovation. In this conversation, we talk about what most leaders get wrong about motivation, why sales and leadership are inseparable, and the 1% gap that can transform performance. Let's go behind the business with Andrew Leith. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for spending time with us today. Time is probably the most valuable commodity that any business owner has, so thank you for spending some time with us today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me back.
Now, your leadership philosophy didn't start in a boardroom. We talked about this before we went on air. It started in a marina in southern Ontario. Looking back, what did growing up on the water teach you about uncertainty and risk and decision-making that still shows up in how you lead today and how you teach others to lead?
Yeah, for sure. I think the one thing that boating teaches you is you need the resources before you leave shore. And so, my whole life growing up, we were really planning these trips, making sure that we had all the resources, planning for any inevitability that could occur. And, the last thing you want is for there to be an accident on the water and not have exactly what you need in the way of first aid and so on.
Now, I talk about that. You rented houseboats. What were the things that you did? And it was up in was it the Trent Severn or what part
the
of
Autonomy River? In Peterborough.
Okay.
Yeah, so we rented houseboats. My dad also sold boats, so I have lots of great memories of me cruising the water, sitting on the front of the bass boat, holding on for dear life. But yeah, no, it was great growing up in that area. But, I think you touched on something there. As a child, the lens of preparedness is not always something that we bring with us, right? And so I think from a really young age, I learned the benefits. And probably some of my friends, when we would go out on trips, probably thought it was absurd, but we were always prepared.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and houseboats, I go up to my old boss's place in near Fenland Falls, and we always go and watch the locks and watch the houseboats come in. And I would say not all of those houseboat operators, when they rent one of those places, are probably as prepared as you are. But it is a valuable lesson of having enough gas and enough life jackets, amongst other things, to be ready when you go in the water. So let's talk about. Many leaders talk about finding their leadership philosophy or style. And I think everyone's got one, whether you can name it, about how you lead, but people recognize that, and they would probably have a better idea of articulating whether you're command and control or a consensus leader, whatever those things are. When did you realize your personal experiences were, so whether it's formative or through your business career, were actively shaping how you lead?
Yeah, well, definitely it's been an evolution. I'm not the same leader that I was the first time I managed a team. And I think a lot of that comes from lived experience. And so for me personally, going through, a life-altering illness and then an ADHD diagnosis really gave me a couple of, to use the term, lenses to be able to see the world a little differently. And so I'm definitely a kinder leader now. I'm certainly nicer to myself and nicer to people around me. But I think for me, the biggest change has been understanding that each person requires an individualized leadership strategy. And so we tend to, as managers, manage a department, but that department is full of people and all those people are very unique. And if we can, as leaders, figure out how to tap into their unique superpowers, we might be able to create our own Avengers team to assemble.
That's interesting, and I think that's right. Everyone is unique, but you try and manage a department is different than managing the people in the department. When organizations call you and say, "Hey, look, a lot of yours will be around, say, I need some help with my sales team," as an example. So you'll be you pick a certain part of a business. When they call you, they usually think they need that one thing. I need help with my business or my business development staff or my operations staff. Once you're inside the business, what do you typically discover that they actually need? Like, is it usually, will it expand to something else, or is it something else entirely? Or in many cases, is it, no, they actually need, it's their business team that needs it? How do you kind of evaluate what their true need is? Because they've called you because they know they have a need.
Right.
Whether they've self-diagnosed the right or wrong thing is an open question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm a revenue strategist, so I quite often get called when companies want to make more money. What we do is we assess a number of different cultures within the organization, which is often surprising to some of our clients, that it's not just hiring more, doing more, working harder. And so what we've understood over years working with different organizations is there's actually three cultures that exist within an organization. You've got your people culture, you've got your process culture, and you've got your product culture. And each of those cultures are interlinked. The only thing is that your process culture is not loud, and neither is your product. Your people are going to be the canary in the coal mine. They're going to be the indicator that there's a problem in one of those three cultures. And so what we do is we create assessments and work with organizations to isolate the gaps within or between those different pillars. And usually we can not only isolate and fill those gaps, but attribute a higher retention of revenue or clientele to that.
Let's pull back the onion on that. So when you say there's people, process, and product, and process and product are quiet and people are loud,
yes,
are you saying that if there's a process problem, the machine's not screaming out unless it breaks down, as an example, if you're talking about machinery, but it might be the operator saying, "Hey, this thing is not working properly." Is that when you talk about being loud, they're the ones that are going to identify where things are working, where they're not working?
So let's talk about an example. You've got an altercation between two employees that gets to HR. HR wants to reprimand one of the employees. We could reprimand the one employee and say the problem's done and move on. However, what if it's an internal process that is causing that frustration, creating internal roadblocks or hurdles, creating frustration between departments, which inevitably, no matter who's sitting in that seat, is most likely going to lead to that outcome. So understanding how that process impacts our people culture indirectly, but also directly impacts our ability to generate revenue. Because I don't know about you, but when I wake up on the wrong side of the bed, I'm not at my most excellent. And if there's someone that's promoting me to get up on the wrong side of the bed, I'm probably even less productive that day. So I think in this area, talking about product is really important. So for founders or owners that are listening, that you've created your own products and you're very proud of them, you have a core group of people that are intrinsically connected to that product. That's easy to understand that your people are connected and have ownership over the product. But what if you scale and you get to 10, 20, 50, or 100 employees? Heck, you get to 1,000. What is that 999th employee's connection to that initial product? And if organizations aren't thinking about how to add transparency, ownership, and accountability to their product development process by either bringing employees into the research and development process, creating a feedback loop between their clients and their sales team, you have a lot to learn from your employees. We just have to create the safe space for them to give us the information we need.
Well, I would tell you, my kids tell me that I wake up on the wrong side of the bed every day. Just kidding. Okay, let's talk about. It was fascinating. We were talking, and we made the comment of, you talk about the gap between 99% and 100%, and I didn't really in terms of performance, 99% versus 100%, and it really is, your own. Everyone's interpretation of perfection, right? Wanting to get it right. So when talk about what that 1% gap is there that you're talking about, the 99% to 100%, like what lives in that gap. So if you say like 99% sure sounds like a great score, but if you insist on getting to 100, what is the gap that's there, and why do leaders pursue that perfection when you're probably maxed out, when you're at 95 or 99%, you've pretty much maxed out. I found it fascinating because it really talks about where you're going to put the extra time and effort into your business.
So you're exactly right. I think you summed it up very well. There's a return on investment on every activity that we undertake. And if, as a perfectionist, we continue to ideate and evolve and make it better because it's only 99.2% or 99.3%, we don't see the value in the message just hitting the audience it needs to find. And so we can sometimes toil in this gap between 99 and 100%, and no one will ever notice the difference. And so what I say is 99% is excellence, 100% is perfection, but perfection doesn't exist. So if we physically try to attain 99%, we can get there. And so for perfectionists, it's important to have to be introspective, but also to have external resources that we reflect upon. So let's say you and I are colleagues. If I'm working on a big project, I might in my brain believe that there's still so much left to do on this. But when I get to 90% of where I think it should be, that's a great time to turn it over to a colleague or a trusted compatriot and say, can you take a look at this? And my guess is most perfectionists, the response they're going to get is, this is amazing. I've never seen anything that was done to this level before. And you're still in your brain 10% away from where it's perfect. And so I think that there are a lot of leaders that are beating themselves up, and not just leaders, but people in general that are raising the bar so high that they're the only ones that can actually notice the difference. And so I think it's important to get that external perspective and understand when enough is enough. And again, be kinder to ourselves in that process.
Well, that would be something important if people are not seeing that. Is you coming in and getting them to see that for themselves is important. Listen, I mean, when we talk about hiring and the people that we work with, I've always said since I've been at the chamber, in fact, most of the jobs I've had is everyone's got to be a leader. Especially if you're in small business. If you're a small, medium-sized business, there is not enough people to have, the hierarchy, and there are some large businesses. But even within that, everyone's got to take leadership of the piece that they own. Mm-hmm. When we talk about in the companies that you're working with, I mean, you're often, because you're revenue, enhancement, and that's your focus. So you brought in sales as the vertical. But is in that environment, is leadership always looked as it's kind of separate from sales? Because I think leadership is part and parcel of everything, including sales.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of salespeople that are their own leaders, right? Because they're entrepreneurial in spirit, or their role mandates that they're a team of one. And so it's important for people to realize that leadership isn't always leading others. Sometimes it's leading ourselves. And sometimes it's creating the positive cultures and processes and values that allow us to stay in our excellence. And I truly believe, working with a number of solopreneurs, that there's not a lot of people out there thinking in that regard. And I feel like if we ask ourselves, how would we treat an employee in this position, we're most often going to treat that employee a lot nicer than we would treat ourselves. And I do challenge any solopreneur or entrepreneur out there to treat themselves a little better, because it's in that rest, it's in that recovery where you will regroup and find your excellence again. And I think there's a lot of people pushing themselves to the brink. And I was an example of that. So I can speak firsthand to, almost killing myself for a company that, that might not have been killing themselves for me. So.
Well, and I think that's very important for people, anyone listening, is everyone's got to lead themselves before you can lead others. And I think that's really good. Okay, you've worked globally. Walk us a little maybe through some of your work history. But I guess the part I want to get to is you're rooted here in Waterloo region. You've worked around the world, in different places and doing different types of roles. What makes the Waterloo region kind of the reason you want to be here? Because you could do what you do from anywhere. I mean, there is a home market here, but you've worked other places, you've lived other places. What makes the leadership conversations here in the region of Waterloo different, for an example, or is it different?
Yeah. So coming from a background in tech, Waterloo region is a very attractive place to be, but it's also a humble place to be that really has a lot of brag-worthy aspects. And so I've been to Silicon Valley. I've been to some of these upstart organizations that are big and flashy and are happy to tell you all about that. There's some really great community-based initiatives happening here in KW. I'm a member of Communitech. I'm at Accelerator all the time. There's such a gathering of brilliant minds working on AI and automations and other projects that are really putting Waterloo on the map right now. And personally, the value that I bring to the community is that ability to understand how equity companies are rapid scaling software to get them to that next big leap or their third or fourth evolution, and helping founders and owners that are into rapid scaling their organizations to understand what roadblocks are going to come and make those plans and initiatives to circumvent them when they arise.
The Behind the Business podcast is made possible through the support of our title sponsor, Gore Mutual. Proudly Canadian, Gore Mutual has stayed true to one purpose for more than 185 years, insurance that does good. It's the reason they exist. They believe that when we focus on being good, doing good, and spreading good, we all thrive together. We're grateful for their continued commitment to our local communities and the positive impact they make every day. For more information, visit goremutual.ca. So just following on that, I mean, we are growing fast. There's lots of, startups, and there's a whole innovation culture, not just in tech, but across the board. But it's a fast growing region. What responsibility would you say that leaders in business in particular, but also not-for-profits, I guess, have in a region that like ours, that's experienced such rapid growth and the change that comes with rapid growth?
Yeah, well, I can speak for myself. I'm most proud when someone that has been in my command comes full circle and is sitting at the table beside me, or sometimes that I'm asking for a seat at their table. And so I think part of being a leader in this community is understanding that reciprocal relationship is in perpetuity. And so you make long-standing relationships in a place and community like Waterloo, and those are shoulders you're going to rub up against for the remainder of your career. Unlike in New York where you might not see the same people, here when you really put your thumbprint on the community, it's not erased.
Yeah. Listen, we're just about at time. We could talk all day, but wanted to ask one more question before we wrap up with the rapid fire kind of leadership questions.
Okay, great.
As you look ahead on what's next for you and your company, and I maybe put it this way: where are you most focused on making impact? Like, because you work with the Rotary Club, you work with clients across the region and outside the region. What's next for you, and where are you most focused on making that impact?
Yeah. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. So in the last couple of years, I've been involved with the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers, and that has really helped me to realize that by speaking on larger stages, I can get my message to a larger audience. And so my pursuit for 2026 is to speak on stages, providing keynotes, speaking to leaders and people in general about how individualized leadership and bringing all of themselves to the table is hugely important. Bringing joy back into their lives and stop listening to the joy thieves in our lives that are stealing all of our fun.
Yeah. Well, that's worthwhile, and we'll look forward to seeing where you go in the days ahead. Listen, before we wrap up, and this podcast is always about the leaders that are leading in our community, in the business community, in the broader community, for sure. But it's also, and we talked a little bit about this, it's about leadership. And so I'm always fascinated. I ask the same series of questions to everyone that comes on the podcast because it's always fascinating how people kind of view the questions. No wrong answers, but it for everyone listening, I challenge you to think about, if I was asking them the question when you're watching this podcast, how would you would respond? So if you could go back in time and tell your younger self something, what would it be?
Well, I think I just touched on it. It would be to bring all of yourself to everything that you do, that all the parts of yourself that you hide, that you're embarrassed of, that you don't think have value, actually are what makes you the most excellent. So bring all of yourself to every show you play.
Is there who or what inspires you?
Yeah, I think I would go back to the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers. I was just at their national conference in Halifax. I've been in a room with 5 people that were inspiring and that were trying to change the world. To be in a room with 200 people who are doing their best to change the world it's a powerful thing.
Well, that's great. If you weren't in your current career, what would you be doing? Would you be back on the water and boating, or what would you do if you weren't in your current career?
Well, I think most likely I would be selling something.
Yeah.
However, I would like to think that I would be on a beach somewhere warm, working for the exact amount of money I need to have the most joy in every day.
Well, given that it's minus 14 out, I'd like to be on a beach as well. That's a good answer. Are you reading a book or are you listening to a podcast? What do you do to kind of keep your either tune out or kind of recharge?
Yeah, I'm always picking up different podcasts and listening to things, but I always have a couple of books on my nightstand that are, causing some points of reflection. I think Jason Marichello's book, The Prosperity Triad, has really got me thinking about how external success and internal wellness are intrinsically connected and how it's important to keep a lens on all of that. And then as I get into my speaking career and understanding diversity and inclusion is important to me as a speaker, a book that I've picked up and can't seem to put down is The Inclusive Speaker by Denis Boudreau. And you would love it. It's just all about how people in audiences are perceiving our messages and we don't even understand because of potential inclusivity issues or resources they might require that we could be conscious of, and in our message would even have more impact. And so I'm learning a lot about people that think and absorb information differently than you and I.
Interesting. Okay, and as we wrap up, what's your favorite local business? Coffee shop, restaurant, retail? What's your go-to?
Yeah, well, I have a lot of favorite businesses, but the ones that I'm going to call out are ones that I think that are doing amazing things for this community that we live in. Food for Kids, Fawn and Carrie are just doing amazing things over there, and the rest of the team, not to disclude anyone, just really doing their best to nourish the next generation of leaders. We've also got Little Mushroom Catering, who I've done some work with, who I can say is really a local leader who people should be looking at as a way to empower their employees, and how can they emulate what the team over there at Little Mushroom is doing there. Just an amazing group. And then finally, I'm working with a young man at the University of Laurier on a project called Lumenwell, which is a basically first response mental health application for neurodivergent individuals that are seeking help in the community and offering them the support that they need before they're able to receive it from the medical community. So just some, like I said, always inspired by the people that I'm working with, and looking forward to helping them grow and being a part of this thriving community.
Okay, last question. Where can any of our listeners or viewers go to connect with you or to find your contact information or your business?
Absolutely. You can find me at andrewleith.ca or at our executive website, octanteag.com. But please also seek me out on LinkedIn. You can find me under Andrew Leith Sales Executive. And I look forward to having meaningful conversations with all of you.
Listen, appreciate you coming in. I know how I always say this, but for especially small and medium-sized business owners, time's probably the most valuable thing you have, and so we appreciate you spending some time with us today.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Behind the Business, proudly presented by Gore Mutual, insurance that does good. New episodes drop every Thursday, so be sure to tune in next week. You can also visit greaterkwchamber.com to catch up on past episodes anytime. We'll see you next time as we continue to go Behind the Business.